special prosecutor announced that he didn't have enough to charge Biden in this documents case. But what he did, Reese, he came out with this statement that says that cast doubt on the cognitive ability, called him elderly, and basically he did exactly what he wanted to do. He couldn't charge him, and all these mainstream people are now running with the story that Biden is old, feeble, can't remember, and they're seizing upon that. And people are listening to Merrick Garland. Why in the hell would you appoint a right-wing special prosecutor who didn't file any charges, but is now leaning into the one area that people have been criticizing Biden?
Because you're an idiot. That's why. Because Merrick Garland is a disaster. Merrick Garland's been a disaster from day one. Okay, and Merrick Garland should have never been in this position. The way we got Merrick Garland is that Barack Obama wanted to appease Mitch McConnell, which was dumb. And then now everybody felt sorry for Merrick Garland, so they put him in the AG position when it should have been Doug Jones or Andrew Cuomo or Javier Becerra. And Merrick Garland has been an absolute unmitigated disaster. He's a mediocre lawyer with no cojones. That's who he is. And you want to talk about the wrong person showing up at the wrong time in history, that would be Merrick Garland. He seems to have he's oblivious to the idea that our democracy is on the line and that he's a key player in this moment. And he's been terrible from the very beginning. So, yeah, how we got to the special prosecutor who's laying out all this nonsense about Joe Biden's cognitive abilities or not is Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland is the reason. He didn't see this report before it went out, by the way. He didn't have any opinion of what was being written. The guy is an absolute disaster, and I don't know how he stays in there. I don't know why the White House counsel, who's married to Anita Dunn is supposed to be such a guru when it comes to communication strategy. Why haven't they figured out how to get rid of Merrick Garland? There's plenty of attorneys in Washington, D.C. So I wish Monique Presley was here tonight because she sticks up for Merrick Garland. So I got to talk to Monique about this. But every time he comes up, he is a disaster, and he's been a disaster from day one. The Capitol got attacked. It took him forever to prosecute anybody, and that was after Benny's committee. And Merrick Garland is an airhead. I mean, what is so great about this guy? And here we go again with yet another thing that's connected to the failure of Merrick Garland.
Well, I wanted to go to Reese there, but I think Lauren wanted to get a lot off her chest first.
Yeah, she did that. And she did that. Appreciate you,
Reese, go ahead.
She stole all my thunder. Okay, Lauren? No, but the reality is that she's 100% right. Every single appointee of Trump was laser-like in precision and being completely a right-wing hack job, political hack that was going to do the bidding of Donald Trump. And so the idea that Merrick Garland used this person as a special prosecutor to look after a case for Biden, which should have just been a non-starter from the beginning, is ridiculous. And this is a political weapon. And of course, the media who wants a rat race, a media who wants something exciting to get on Biden, a media who has been driving home this narrative about Biden being old and unfit are seizing on this. But the reality is we all know that Joe is old, okay? He's old. He walk a little slower. He talk a little slower. But the reality is I'm not looking at the fact that, whatever this person who's a Trump appointee is saying, I'm looking at my bank account, I'm looking at how my family is doing, and I'm looking at the other motherfucker on the other side who's facing 90-something counts. Nobody, not Dean Phillips, who got 1%, is jumping in. And so if Joe does become incapacitated, I'm sure somebody around him, maybe they will, maybe they won't, will step aside. If not, he'll limp his ass to the motherfucking ballot box, win, and then he can step aside and let Vice President Kamala Harris be the president. That's what they really scared of more than anything. It ain't even that they think that Joe is too old and mentally incompetent. They scared of something happening to him and Vice President Kamala Harris taking the reins.
Greg Carr.
Yeah, I'm just listening, and both of y'all laid it out so beautifully. And Lauren, you're right with Merrick Garland, and then Reese, you're right that the politics of it are very difficult. It's in moments like this that we have to remind ourselves, or at least it might be useful to remind ourselves, that there are policy differences between the Republicans and Democrats, and there are personality differences. And I don't think anybody can say with a straight face that the Republican Party is anything, well, other than Darrell Scott, perhaps, that the Republican Party is the home of white nationalism. But it's also very painful for some people, not for me necessarily to say, not for me at all, really, that there is no difference between the Democratic and Republican Party when it comes to the larger issues. This isn't about Jews and Muslims. This isn't about Arabs and Jews in Israel. Not primarily. Nola was right, and she knows this, including some of those confidential briefings she's been in. It's about oil and natural gas. It's about water rights. It's about preventing geopolitical shifts that have to do with non-white countries that are now forming their own alliances and a multipolar world. And all those things, get played in. But as that relates to Joe Biden, when it comes to foreign policy, there's really not much of a difference between Republicans and Democrats. And Joe Biden is a soft white nationalist, as is generally the Democratic Party. They're not racist in the hardcore individual sense, and many of them love black people. Joe Biden, for example, was loved, at least didn't dislike Clarence Thomas enough to put him on us when he was chair of Judiciary Committee, and black people, particularly black women, screaming to high hell, like, stop him, because you have the power. But he didn't. I'm saying all that to say this. Biden may be going to the podium now because his hand is being forced by shifting geopolitics and by domestic opinion, as Nola said. He gave his enemies a weapon because Joe Biden seems to think we live in a country. We don't. We live in a state with a lot of different actors, and there is no civility. There are no rules. We saw that today in the oral arguments at the Supreme Court, when the Supreme Court is twisting itself into knots to do something that they probably should do. In critical race theory, they call it legal indeterminacy. There's a way to get to whatever result you want. They argued politics today at the Supreme Court. Let's be very clear about that. And I must say that I kind of sympathize with them, because if you let one state put somebody off the ballot, then the other ones, as Alito said today, might take somebody else. Sam Alito issued a threat today at the Supreme Court to the Democratic Party. Basically, he said, if you take Trump off the ballot, then somebody's going to put Biden off the ballot for being an insurrectionist. And what I'm saying is this thing is spinning out of control. Joe Biden has a decision to make now. Even as people in his party, whether it be Gavin Newsom or the governor of Michigan, Whitmer, or others, might be, thinking that he might not make it to, as Reese said, he's limping too, but maybe he doesn't make it to the general election in November. He's got a decision to make. You're going to have to do something that very few U.S. presidents have had to do. You're going to have to step up and say something that's going to be deeply unpopular. It's not going to be morals or his moral anchor to drive him, because he said if he was Jewish, he'd be a Zionist. He's already morally compromised. This is about real politic at this point. You're going to lose this election, sir. And your friend over there in Israel, whatever economic and strategic interests that you're propping up, as every president does, including Barack Obama. I don't know why Netanyahu didn't like him. Oh, yes, I do. Netanyahu's a racist, but he wasn't ever going to do anything to not back you up. Well, whatever interest you have, this man getting ready to trigger a regional war. And now you done gave, through Merrick Garland, them the knife to cut your throat. Now they saying you're stupid and senile, and you don't remember when your son died, and you can't remember what year it is, and when you were vice president. And as you coming apart like tissue paper, your friend getting ready to trigger a regional war that could spiral out of control and throw the whole globe into problems, particularly if Iran is nuclear. So you might have to step in front of a podium today and draw a line. I guess we'll all see in a few minutes.